Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I am your host, Eric Smith. I had to check and make sure that was facing the right way. Today, I'm talking about vampires, or KJK Presents Vampires. This is a short story collection, and it features Graham Masterton, Kevin J. Kennedy, which is the KJK in KJK Presents, Greg F. Cafune, Lee Mountford, Nick Roberts, Richard Chismar, Michael Bray, and Simon Clark. It's from KJK Publishing, whatever they're called. Look at that fantastic cover. I absolutely love it. And this is just a collection of vampire stories that range from horrifying to lighthearted. How do I go about this? As always, it's short stories, difficult for me to talk about them. I could just tell you titles, Laird of Dunane by Graham Masterton is about an art class that's at this castle with a laird who, might not be completely human. And there's a woman in the art class that he wants to paint. He wants her to paint his portrait. Let's leave it at that. Vampiric pay-per-view, one of the more lighthearted ones, one of the more interesting ones. That's Simon Clark. And it starts with two young gentlemen arguing about whether this pay-per-view is going to allow them to interact with a legitimate vampire. And the story goes from there. The Nest, Kevin J. Kennedy, is about some vampire hunters. I'm not going to say any more about that. Chasing Moonlight. You know what? I do not recall, and I should, because that's the Greg F. Cafune story. Cafune. You know, I interviewed him. I asked him the proper way to pronounce it, and as always, I can't remember. Yes, Chasing Moonlight, a story of addiction, which, goes along with stories of vampires. A Cold Morning on Lake Dark. Ooh, that's a good one. I don't know that I can say anything about it without giving anything away. But, again, it's a nice twist on vampire stories. The Proposal by Lee Mountford. A very quick one. Really not much I can say about that, so I won't. Heroes by Richard Chismar. Trying to recall. So there's detective. Oh, okay. Yes. Wow, another one that I really can't say much about. There's a private detective in it. And there's a young man who has hired that private detective. And there's vampires. Again, I don't want to spoil anything. And then finally, Devil in the Snow by Nick Roberts. It's been a little while since I've read these, so. Wow, what's going on with this? I do not recall. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. How could I have forgotten? One of my favorites. So Devil in the Snow is about this sort of loser kind of guy. He can't keep a job. He's dropped out of school. His mom is tired of having to deal with him. And so he's being sent to Alaska where his brother is stationed. His older brother's in the military. He's stationed in Alaska. They've sent this kid. One of them is named Caleb. I can't remember which one it is. But yeah, Caleb must be the loser guy. I hate to put it that way, but so yeah, he's up there, and it's Alaska, and there's military base, and there's going to be some vampire action because that's what this book is about, and it was fantastic. So, as with any anthology, the stories range. There is a range of quality in the stories. In this case, there are no bad stories, in my opinion. They all have merit in one way or another. They're all very different, but some of them are excellent. I particularly like, the one that I just said, Devil in the Snow. But Cold Morning on Lake Dark was really cool. Chasing Moonlight. Yeah, I mean, they're all decent stories. If you're a fan of vampires, I highly recommend this. If you're a fan of any of these particular authors, I highly recommend it. I gave it 4 out of 5 on Goodreads because there's varying qualities to the stories. And just a note, don't know if anybody's going to care, there are formatting issues with a couple of the stories. One, in particular, seems to have missing parts of sentences. And one has spacing issues. The Richard Chismar has some weird spacing issues, so it's reading the story doesn't flow naturally. There's a lot of jumping around that the eye has to do. So these are just a couple of things that take me out of a story. I don't know if it matters to anybody else. I just thought I would mention these things. And again, I think it's simply formatting issues. But there's that. But 4 out of 5 stars for KJK Presents Vampires. It's a lot of fun since I've come back around to the vampire family. I enjoyed this, and I will say there's no sparkly, mopey vampires in this book, which is another thing in its favor. Pardon me. So there you go. Question for this video, probably a question I have asked before, but what is your favorite vampire story? For me, movie-wise, Near Dark. Absolutely love that movie. It's fantastic. My favorite vampire movie of all time. Book-wise, The Light at the End by John Skip and Craig Spector. I've read it many times. It's due for a reread. Again, just a fantastic story. I absolutely love it. There are other great ones. I need to reread Salem's Lot because it didn't really hit me the first time I read it. I thought it was fine. But I know a lot of people love it. Absolutely love it. So I think maybe I missed something. It's possible. So I do need to reread that. Dracula, a classic. I love the movie 30 Days of Night. Another one of my favorite vampire films. Of course, Dracula, a classic. Not a fan of the Gary Oldman Dracula. I may need to rewatch that because since it was called Bram Stoker's Dracula, I think my expectations were that I would be watching a very close adaptation of the book. And I don't believe it is. And so maybe I need to go in without those expectations. But yes, Near Dark, absolute favorite vampire film. The Light at the End by John Skip and Craig Spector, absolute favorite vampire novel. What about you? Do you enjoy vampires? What's your favorites? Let me know in the comments below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post spoiler warning. We try to be polite here. The Low Budget Review Show. Please like, share, and subscribe. All the usual YouTube stuff. And if you care to follow me on other social media, I'm still on Twitter as of this recording, and it's at Ronan5757. Excuse me. On Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, and fuzzy animals, it's Eric Smith 5757. That's Eric with a K, ERIKSMITH 5757. And if you're at Blue Sky, I am at EL Smith. That's all I have for you. This has been the Low Budget Review Show. I have been Eric Smith. And until next time, read more books.